Hey guys, I got the studio lights and the microphone and the camera, good camera set up because I was just on the Sal Mercogliano's What's Going On in Shipping year-end update. So we take the top 5 maritime stories of the year and Sal and I provide analysis. So head over to Sal's YouTube channel and check that out. But while I got all the mics up, I wanted to record a quick video saying about Operation Prosperity Guardian in the Red Sea. So for those who don't know, a bunch of ships were attacked. A Maersk ship was attacked a week and a half ago. And Maersk decided to reroute most of their ships around Africa. And then the United States came out with this idea for a new coalition. Some say because they were pressured by some of the major European shipping companies. Some say there were other reasons for that, but the United States very quickly put together this coalition, and out of the 34 navies that are already in the area working on anti-piracy and maritime security as part of CF 153, only 10 signed up. Bahrain and Seychelles, they said they don't really have any warships. Canada and Netherlands said they're only sending staff officers. And very quickly after this operation came together, France decided to break apart from the coalition and go protect French-owned ships by CMA CGM. France is back in the coalition, but not following American orders. Some other major allies and players are absent from this. Some are slowly starting to trickle in. Australia initially said no. Now they might send a staff officer or two. It's been falling apart and not going particularly well. On the other hand, first the USS Carney, then the USS Mason has been doing an excellent job of shooting down these Houthi drones. I talked to some people in CENTCOM, Central Command's in charge of this, who have told me that the first 2 iterations of Operation Prosperity Guardian did not do well. But this 3rd iteration is going okay. And basically the 3rd iteration is nations like France are working pretty much on their own, but they're communicating very well with the Navy. So they're tied in the command and control structure. So while France continues to prioritize French-owned ships, and while the U.S. Navy finally has prioritized U.S.-flagged ships, which wasn't the case under iteration 1 or 2. While a bunch of these navies are prioritizing their own interests, they're working well together. And the carrier group Eisenhower has brought in air support, which has helped bring in information about these rocket attacks and the drone strikes. So that's the basics of what's happening. But the politics behind it is still very much a mess. We're hearing reports from multiple sources that a lot of the coalition work that fell apart was being handled by Jake Sullivan's team at the White House. That's the National Security Council. We hear that the Navy either has distanced itself, the Navy leadership, or been a little bit sidelined by the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin's group. Lloyd Austin's a former Army general, and from what I understand and hear, he doesn't really understand shipping. He's good at military operations, doesn't understand shipping. And then you have news from the shipping media in Europe, and the diplomatic channels in Europe is very different from the news we are hearing in the United States. There's a major disconnect between the politics of this operation, the shipping community, which is really based in, wow, I didn't mean to do that. Again, I don't know where the hearts came from. It must be an emoji. See the emoji. Shipping operation and military operation. We need to bring these three elements of the triangle together. How do you do that? Well, there's a very good template for doing that. It is the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Deepwater Horizon, the BP oil rig, exploded. There was a major fire, an enormous oil spill. And in the very early days, you had a lot of the same problems we're having now with Operation Prosperity Guardian. The oil industry, the shipping, the fishing communities, the local communities were all up in arms. They were doing their own thing. The oil industry itself was trying to come up with its own solutions to stop this explosion. You had a lot of pressure from Washington and the environmental lobbies, and they were all on different pages. And then very quickly, Admiral Thad Allen, who was the previous commandant of the Coast Guard, came in and was given control. And Thad Allen was in charge of the Coast Guard operation in Katrina. Hurricane Katrina was another disaster that was not very well managed. There were multiple entities and political pressure, media attention, and all of these working against it. But the Coast Guard itself within that operation did a very good job. They had, I believe, the most rescues in Katrina and did a fabulous job of scrapping, what little resources they could get down there and being a positive force. So fast forward, BP oil rig explosion. Decision was made by the Obama White House to put Thad Allen in charge, and he did a number of things that were really good. First off, he gave power to these individual entities. He, instead of making a military command center like the Navy's doing in Bahrain, he put the command centers inside Transocean, inside BP. His own command center was in the Edison's West, building down at the scene of the oil spill. He wasn't trying to manage it from faraway Bahrain or CENTCOM in Tampa. He managed it from close by and empowered the various groups to do their own thing with military oversight. He had Coast Guard officers in there making sure they didn't misstep, but allowing them to make decisions and full participation. He had frequent updates where he brought the leaders of all these disparate into his tent and had them each talk about their problems and gave direction to them. But the other big thing that Thad Allen did through his staff, Tony Russell was really leading this for Thad Allen. He's now a professor at the Coast Guard Academy, was bringing the media down to see for themselves and to interact with the Transoceans, the BPs, the spill response, the fishermen. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was secret. All right. We just got we got a little bit of pushback from my article saying why were a half dozen U.S. flag ships not given convoy through the Red Sea. And one individual said, well, right prior to that, the USS Carney convoyed an American flag ship. So you missed that completely and your article's all wrong. Well, we can only report on the stories that come to us. And often the stories that come to us are the negative stories, the U.S. flagships that are unprotected sitting there, the leverage that Maersk is putting behind the scenes to leverage the Navy into rushing this Operation Prosperity Guardian, the blunders in the White House. All of those warts are going to come out because people who are frustrated on the ground want to talk about it. But what doesn't come out are those small stories, the people really on the ground who are making a difference. Now, Thad Allen never allowed us journalists to get in the way of operations. We weren't given, front access to the firefighting vessels putting spray on the Deepwater Horizon. But in the periphery, C-130 flight. Well, first of all, he took over hotels and made those hotels media hotels and gave discount access to those hotels. And then at the hotels, he had combat commanders handing out tickets. Here's a flight to a C-130. Here's a pass to the beach. Who do you need to talk to? PAOs were at the very front lines, and all of the commanders were there on the ground making this happen in real time. So that's what needs to happen. And it's not something the Navy does well because a lot of this is classified and there's military secrets. What made the Deepwater Horizon response so good and what got the information out there and assisted all of the efforts that all the parts that were put in and got everyone working on the team was the fact it was led by the Coast Guard. When I go to a tanker conference, I never see a cruise ship captain. When I go to cruise ship conference, I never see a Wall Street banker. When I go to Wall Street banking conference, I never see a Navy uniform officer. It's a very siloed industry. And a lot of that silo, for especially the container lines, is in Europe. It's not in DC. And I've been begging the CEOs of Maersk, MSC, CMA, CGM to come to Washington, meet with Pete Buttigieg, to meet with the Secretary of the Navy in the White House, but they won't do it for whatever reason. I can't force them. But the Coast Guard has liaisons at the International Maritime Organization, the International Chamber of Shipping, and talking with these guys. They're at the tanker and the cruise ship and the Navy conferences. They're all over the place. Why isn't the Coast Guard taking over now? Why don't they have a bigger role? Well, they're completely under budget. They just had to cut 10 cutters, and they don't have the money or the resources that they had even just 10, 15 years ago. But this is the importance of the Coast Guard. And whether it's the Coast Guard or someone else like Admiral Stavridis did something very similar in miniature with the Somali piracy. You need a leader who is willing to get up in front of the TV and tell the honest truth to reporters, because those reporters are going to find out anyway. But we're not going to find those good stories. And they need to be maybe not in Djibouti or Bahrain, but invite those journalists to the Suez Canal, to Egypt. Give them tickets, maybe not on the USS Carney, but after she is, going to reload, get tickets on there, access to the commanding officers, access to the ship owners. Get them all talking to each other. That's how this Operation Prosperity Guardian should be going. All right, take care.